To fight or not to fight? The danger of not believing in yourself. To stop fighting doesn't always mean giving up. Sometimes it means, precisely, that you would never give up. Za'el. Hello, and I welcome you. Thank you very much for coming in to listen. Za'el here. I am aware, and surely much more than you imagine, of the immense difficulty in maintaining high hope and determination in earthly circumstances on many occasions. That is why there is often an understandable rejection of motivational or empowering messages that encourage one to see things from a more positive filter or point of view, since the person in question believes that he or she has already thought positive for a long time. He or she has already fought for a long time. They already used all their strength and all their energy in trying to manifest what they wanted, without favorable results. At a certain point in the evolution of a seed incarnated on Earth, it is no longer a question of the difficulty of the doughy 3D. With a long time of patient waiting and constant attention on what to manifest, since, reaching a certain degree of consciousness, inevitably things begin to manifest much faster. Almost instantly, yes, even there. 3D is not a limitation for that. The problem, or the worst part of it, is that those things that manage to manifest almost instantly or within hours of each other are often things that are unimportant to the person. But the really important thing, that which would mean a substantial positive change for you and your life, that which would bring you that experience you are longing for, keeps failing or even moving away in spite of many efforts to bring it into your life. There are many different factors to consider here. To begin with, of course, we must remember the natural connection that exists between all people living together within a set of agreements, the average of which forms what we call life or reality, the rules by which your world is governed. A seed at a high level of consciousness affects that reality in a much higher percentage. It has a much more significant power of influence in that world, and it depends on each case. Therefore, and reasoning from here, if one of these seeds is carried away by defeatism and darkness to which one tends to go through a bad stage, this seed will be contributing to the reality it affects, manifesting for itself a world even more cruel than the one that made it enter into that state precisely. With this, also diminishing little by little its base frequency, and with it its power of positive influence. And although you can get out of everything and it is not beyond repair, you must think about what is at stake when you give in to these negative thoughts. That is why it has been mentioned and emphasized repeatedly before by my colleagues the great responsibility that on a conscious seed falls. As in the famous and correct line from the movie Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. It's not just a nice, epic line for a superhero movie. It's something to seriously consider. On the other hand, when it comes to rejecting what used to motivate you, there is a much greater danger. The important thing is not whether or not the positive messages that may come to you from the outside are received. What is really important, and where the real danger lies, is whether or not you lose your own strength. The ability to see things objectively and never defeatist or deterministic. Because, really, there is only one moment in which objectively you have hopelessly lost, and that is the moment in which you give up on yourself. The moment when you begin to doubt your own abilities, which is often followed by doubting everything you thought was positive in your reality or everything you thought you were clear about. The need to fall apart in these circumstances is understandable. I am not going to tell you that it is not the natural thing to do, much less tell you that you are weak for feeling that way or thinking that way given the circumstances. I want you to know that I understand, and sometimes that is precisely what is most needed. To feel that someone understands you. But while still allowing you your own space to feel bad, or to ask yourself what you need to ask yourself, I also see myself in the position or duty to inform you of the danger of letting yourself get too carried away by that darkness. Because sometimes the tendency to recreate ourselves in suffering is precisely what ends up making us compatible with that which we reject and which hurts us so much. I am obliged to remind you of the powerful importance of words, especially those we use against ourselves, which shape our unconscious and therefore the way we perceive reality. Therefore, in short, to reality itself. You decide, or you are the one who must responsibly assess where is the line that delimits the reasonable withdrawal of your mental and energetic defenses, and where begins the self-sabotage that directly affects your frequency and the things that will end up appearing in your life. There is also one more factor to consider, and of utmost importance, and here perhaps I am getting into something much more personal. And that is, when your struggle involves the feelings and the will of other people, it is something much more complicated. I think it is something honorable and precious to fight to make happy those people who for us are so worthwhile, or so important and valuable in our lives. I think it is something to try, and never throw in the towel lightly if you really want that. However, if at the moment you perceive or think that their will, their desires, their feelings, are opposed to yours, I'm afraid you have only one alternative left. Because to continue fighting in these cases would not only be invasive to the other person or persons, which I believe we must avoid at all costs, it would also result in hurting yourself, and that sustained over time. I guess you have the necessary information to intuit or conclude what it ends up resulting in, especially after the above explained. And it is that in this case, as well as in others in which we manifest things irrelevant to us or even negative, and not what we really want, we are actually sometimes much more focused on the fact that things are not as we want them to be. So, more of that we have in our life. For this very reason, valuing of course each case under your own responsibility, maybe the best option you have is to stop resisting what is now in your life. But since we have always been talking about not giving up, not resigning, and not giving anything for lost, how does that fit in with all this? Am I contradicting myself? Well, we are people, and we are full of contradictions many times. However, many of those times, including this one, what at first seems contradictory simply depends on the situation, or becomes complementary in a much bigger picture than just a general rule to follow. Sometimes, the hardest battle is precisely to fight against yourself and stop resisting what you fear. Accept it. Respect that things are the way they are now. It doesn't mean they will be that way tomorrow. Perhaps, after having tried everything, you still have one powerful weapon left. Integrate everything. Things may not change, in which case you will have learnt to be happy in spite of it, and with the pride of having tried to make them different. What matters is not the result outside, but the result in you. But I have a surprise in store for you. It is possible that precisely by ceasing to resist what you reject, you will end up attracting what you wanted to attract. Who knows what surprises you have in store for yourself? Besides, the fact of fighting that last battle in the face of the fear of losing what you long for so much because you stop fighting is in itself an act of love for it like no other. If you are able to do it, be proud. I know there comes one of those constant blows that takes with it the will to keep growing, striving, experimenting, getting to know yourself, or fighting for your dreams and goals. But in those devastating blows, it is where you really decide who you are and what you are capable of. It is where our destiny is decided, because it is also where we decide how stable our frequency is. Where one's true strength is tested is not even in the multiple times of getting up or recovering from blows. Where it is really tested is in that one blow that seems like the final one, and from which you don't want to get up anymore. Whatever the reason was that made you compatible with living that in the first place, you're there now. We have come this far, and now what are you going to do? Are you going to overcome that experience that some call school for souls? Are you going to take responsibility for your thoughts and your frequency? Are you going to rescue yourself, or are you going to let yourself fall into that low frequency? Your destiny is up to you. I believe in you. To stop fighting doesn't always mean giving up. Sometimes it means, precisely, that you would never give up. Take responsibility. Many hugs. Za'el.